Are you ready, kids?
Too bad, because I am. Hello, it's Employee a Million, and welcome back to SpongeComs. Today's episodes are Season 3, Episode 18, or Episode 58 overall, Missing Identity and Plankton's Army, both of which originally aired on Nickelodeon on January 19th, 2004. And golly gee, we're getting to the home stretch of Season 3, aren't we? Which means the home stretch of the pre-movie era. And I'm going to point out that some of these are the last episodes for some things. So, yeah, we're getting there. Just stay positive. This is a comedy show. Happy, haha, funny. Missing Identity was written by Paul Tibbett, Kent Osborne, and Meriwether Williams, and something that I never knew about it until very recently, and something that a lot of people didn't know about it until very recently, is that it was one of the early episode concepts that Steven Hillenburg used in his pitch Bible when he was selling it to Nickelodeon way back in 1996, 1997. So that's pretty interesting because you think of just the basic setup: SpongeBob has lost his name tag. That seems like such a simple thing that they would have done in season 1, and they go into how it is intrinsic to his character to worry about something so simple and not see the bigger picture or have as much self-awareness, which is the whole joke at the end, the reason that he gets kicked out of the Krusty Krab. And that's a good little character piece. So I can see why something like that was used to pitch the show. But you can tell that not everything in this episode was used in that pitch, because I mean, you look at other episodes that were in that pitch Bible, like Bubble Stand, Jellyfishing, Squeaky Boots, some of the really early season 1 episodes, and yeah, they are very simple episodes with not too much going on. They aren't the worst that the show had on offer, but they are very simple, and that was good for, like, easing people into the concept of a talking sponge. But you look at other episodes that were pitched in there that were then used in later seasons, like Big Pink Loser, and I was kind of shocked to see that an early idea for 20,000 Patties Under the Sea from season 5 was in there. And you can sort of recognize it, but it's still, like, very simple in that case, but it's a bit more complicated in those later episodes. And that's how I feel about Missing Identity, even though this basic idea is very simple. They go to a lot of places with it. They go to this little moody scene in a diner, which is a great way to start the episode. You don't usually get prologues in SpongeBob episodes, but this is a good prologue. And yeah, you also get this. You also get this whole little blooper reel bit. You get diving in the dumpster, which would have been a bit off-putting for an early season 1 episode, but by season 3, you have enough trust in these characters that this whole dumpster diving thing won't totally gross you out. We're at a bit of a tip of the bell curve with that, aren't we? I've got in my notes not much in the way of trivia, so just ramble about the episode, so that's what I've got to do. But yeah, I pointed out what I think is a very interesting aspect of this episode, that it was used in the pitch Bible. And I feel like, I don't know, the thing with pitch Bibles is that they're supposed to be private. You don't want to go snooping around in them. But yeah, it was just really easy to find because Nickelodeon kept taking it down and they just keep popping up. Streisand effect, what's that? But I think that Missing Identity is a pretty good episode. I didn't like it as much when I was younger, but it's grown on me over the years. That's a good sign of a classic episode, when it just gets better with time. The thing I'm most impressed about with this episode is how it plays with SpongeBob's character design. Like, it's such a minute change, just removing his shirt collars, but if you're astute, you'll notice. And it's such a minor difference that when it's revealed that he's got his shirt on backwards at the end, well, you're totally on board with it. Like, it isn't a cop out. It's just, it's been staring at me in the face this entire time. And yeah, kind of glad that this is the first episode that Zeus Service has an on screen storyboard credit for because, he was around. He did most of the episodes in the middle seasons in terms of storyboarding and writing, so want to give him some credit for holding up the fort, even if his episodes weren't the best. But he got off to a pretty good start with this one because there are a lot of really funny like faces and moments in this episode. And obviously he isn't the only storyboard artist credited. It's a collaborative effort, but I just wanted to say that there's a lot of little good iconic moments in here, like SpongeBob's heavy breathing, the black face he makes. You can tell a lot of people are on board now and have their own little flourishes that they add to SpongeBob. So it's just kind of nice to see when someone new comes on board, and it's not too noticeable, but it's still nice that, they're there. Don't know what I'm saying now. Where'd Squidward's house go? Maybe that's the topic for another day. Maybe this is actually set after Good Neighbors. And here we've got a nice little repeat. On top of iconic moments, you've also got iconic lines like most important meal of the day, 7-Up, Gary's Way. Even something like Good Morning World and All Who Inhabit It. That's just a line I associate with SpongeBob. It's just such a good little line where he's just putting a little too much effort into something. It's really charming. Something you don't often get in these early years is, well, something you don't often get in SpongeBob in general is parody of an idea within like the film industry or even TV industry. And you get this with this little blooper reel with Patrick coming up where he just keeps flubbing his line. And I feel like some of these are based on actual blooper reels from actual movies, but I can't be too sure which they're talking about. Oh, hey, Squidward's house is back. But I don't know. Speaking of references, I didn't really get the Dog Day Afternoon reference as a kid, but now I do. Good on me. Gosh, what else is there to really say about Missing Identity? I do really like it. It's a good episode. Ramble, ramble, ramble. Really, most of this is going to be for Plankton's army, but yeah. I think another thing that really helps in this episode is Tom Kenny's performance as SpongeBob, because it goes to a lot of places. Like, he's down in the dumps at the start with the prologue. He's happy with his morning routine at first. He's scared then that he's going to lose his job. And he's really annoying when he's going la 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 la, but it's obviously intentionally annoying, so it's not too egregious. And then he just gets really ticked off with Patrick, and that's funny in a way. Oh, and there's Old Man Jenkins and his jalopy. That was in an earlier episode. Glad that this show has a bit of continuity. We've got a little joke here about the stench of a garbage can being the stench of discovery, which I saw a lot on Twitter back when I used Twitter, when, Warner Brothers Discovery was just making a lot of really dumb decisions last year. And I think that's a good sign of the universal appeal of SpongeBob, when even a line like that few people would really care about without that context is just shared. People know what it means. People kind of like connecting the dots and giving it a new context. I think that's just a testament to the appeal of SpongeBob, and that it's never going to be unappealing. Like, there's always going to be people who look to these episodes to find something to enjoy, even when they're talking about literal garbage and getting themselves covered in it. I really like this little painting they do of SpongeBob here. Like, I wonder if any collector has it or if it's just saved in the Nickelodeon archives. Just SpongeBob covered in junk. And it's not too distracting when they have him explode out of it or have it explode off of him because it's only on screen for a bit. That's the thing you have to look out for when you're doing painting gags, just making sure it isn't too conspicuous or inconspicuous. I forget which is which. And here's our good old plot twist coming up. And yeah, we get more of Tom Kenny really pouring his heart into SpongeBob here. Just the way his voice cracks when he says, "Wow!" That really gets to me for some reason. Like, this is just really bothering SpongeBob. And I do really like how the characters point out at the end that this was all just a complete waste of time for SpongeBob, that he didn't even need a name tag in the first place because you don't see his name tag in other episodes, you don't see Squidward's name tag in this, and that wasn't part of his inspection. And I think that was the last or one of the last times we're ever going to hear the SpongeBob credits theme in an actual episode, like within the context of a scene. I think at this point it just became too iconic as just the credits theme for the show, which is why they don't use it in the show. But yeah, this is a really funny way to end the episode, and it's a funny way to make you think about what you just watched. You just saw SpongeBob worry about something that meant a lot to him, and well, it didn't really work out for him. It was a very charming little character piece that just went through the whole gamut of his character, and that's all I can really ask for. Even if the base of it could have been a season 1 episode, I am glad that they waited until season 3 to, make this a bit more complex and a bit more, established and developed. Just that subtle ending is just really good. Here we go. Plankton's Army, written by Jay Lender, Sam Henderson, and Meriwether Williams. This was the last episode to be written by them, and it's kind of sad to see them go so soon. I say so soon, but yeah, I'm just kind of getting through season 3 quickly because of the 2-year delay. Speaking of that 2-year delay between seasons 3 and 4, because Nickelodeon didn't have that many SpongeBob episodes to air in 2003 and 2004, when this episode aired in early 2004, Nickelodeon really hyped it up as Plankton's Revenge, which isn't the best name because that could basically apply to any Plankton episode since fun, but it went under the original name Plankton's Last Stand back when they weren't sure if season 3 would be the last SpongeBob thing, and possibly before they got the movie story, sorted out. So there was sort of a push to make this as big of an event as it could be for an 11-minute episode at the time for Nickelodeon. They aired a big old Plankton marathon before this, I think. They, gave it their own little logo. They, did things for it. And these days, it is kind of unnecessary to hype episodes up like this, but back when SpongeBob was one of the most popular shows on cable TV, it was sort of good to, well, from a business standpoint, good to just show that new episodes were important. I don't know what I'm getting at, but I feel like that this episode was a bit overhyped at the time, but it's been long since that hype, and it's a good episode. I really like it. I mean, I don't know if it should have been the final appearance of Plankton, because by this point, the movie was well into production, and, well, by the time it aired anyway. And, yeah, Plankton was the villain of that movie, so no real reason to see this as like the big final Plankton moment, even if you're just talking about content up to the movie. But it's a pretty good Plankton episode. Some pretty underrated scenes in here, like Plankton just sort of being overly verbose with the tough guys, Plankton getting crushed by his wife Karen's hand. I feel like this sort of marked a transition for Karen's character in that she is becoming more of a character and less of like sort of this computer giving Plankton advice. But yeah, it's still sort of classic Karen. It's still like the computer hooked up to the screen compared to the mobile variant that then appeared in the movie, which I kind of prefer design wise, but yeah, there is something very distant and unfamiliar about just a giant monitor hooked up to the screen. But yeah, Karen's really funny in this episode. This is where they were really starting to nail down a good character for her. And that just sort of improves as the show goes on. She's one of the only things that consistently improves as the show goes on, in my humble opinion. Everything else is just ups and downs. And the big draw for this episode is that we finally get a good look at what Plankton's family is like. Like, what are Plankton like under the sea besides Plankton himself? And because Plankton are so plentiful and are considered very, very low life forms, hardly considered life forms, they thought, let's just make them hillbillies, just sort of this large family of lower class people. And I'm really looking for tactful ways to say, oh, they're yokels. But yeah, I think that it works within a certain context in terms of how they fit into bikini bottom society. But I don't know, just because I've never visited America before, I don't really know what this sort of what these sort of depictions are like for other like people in America, especially if they live in lower income areas, like if these have aged the best. But I don't know, as an outsider looking in, I feel like Plankton's family, some of them have pretty unique characteristics. Like you see that little imagination spot of all the Plankton as like evil geniuses and from other places, and they're all just Plankton with a costume on. But then you look at his family and they're all different and they look distinct for the most part. You look at the background and you just get a floating eye next to like a green circle, but that's still pretty charming. And that is also a bit of a reflection of how Plankton in the ocean don't look too alike. They're like micro snowflakes and underwater. And I feel like this is also a very like full circle echo of the United Plankton Pictures logo, which is a bunch of plankton holding hands against a watery backdrop. And like it's a very underrated little company logo, but it is really cute and I like it, and I'm glad that they technically made an episode based on it. And here we've got Karen's classic Sheldon bit. I think that this episode ruined the name Sheldon for the next century or so. And as for how Plankton's family evolved in the post-movie era, I feel like only a few episodes ever bring back the fact that his family is yokels. One Course Meal of all episodes is one of those. Like just in this sort of nightmarish dream that he has. Nightmarish dream, I'm really losing it. But then they introduce a grandmother for him, and that usually doesn't go anywhere. But I do really like the possibilities in terms of animation that the like a whole swath of plankton can accomplish. Like you've got the visual gag of panning out, they all look like grass. That's pretty funny. And then you've got them all in big crowds, and it always takes a lot of effort to like design them anyway. And this little laugh that Plankton does up here, like, it's such an exaggerated face that I'm surprised it isn't from a, like, modern episode from the past few years. Like, it's only on screen for half a second, and it's probably the most unhinged face in the entirety of season 3. And that includes overtime and. But, yeah, I do really think that there are some cool things that they do with the plankton. Like, they give them this sort of texture here. Like, they make them a texture that moves around, and that's pretty cool. A little bit of 2D CGI going on there. And I'm a bit surprised every time I watch this that they're able to turn into a hand and an ear. It's kind of strange, but I'll buy it as long as, it's funny. I mean, that is a very subjective but very easy thing to nail down. I'll buy it as long as it's funny. And for some reason, Mr. Krabs' secret formula is behind, like, a door-sized safe this time. Like, these days I'm so used to it being behind a safe behind his wall. But it kept changing locations in this early phase of Plankton Adventures. I don't think they nailed down the safe until season 5, I think. But yeah, this was a pretty fun way to end Plankton's escapades to get the Krabby Patty secret formula for now. And it's kind of surprising that they kept SpongeBob out of the picture as much as possible. Like, he only gets, I think, 4 lines in the entire episode. Like, this must be the least SpongeBob we ever get in an episode until More Girl Pearl in season 9. And the algae's always greener doesn't count because it may be a parallel universe SpongeBob, but he looks and acts exactly like SpongeBob, so take that. I really do like this misdirect, too, of, like, the recipe apparently including Plankton, but not really. Makes the eventual friend or foe special a bit darker when you think about it, but it's all just a joke, a ruse on Mr. Krabs' behalf. And one last thing is the bit with Krabs' mattress, in that he keeps the formula under his mattress. No wonder he had back problems in season 4, and they had to replace his mattress for an entire episode. But other than that, this was a pretty funny episode. I like it. I don't think it should have been the final Plankton appearance ever. We eventually got the movie out of that, if you want to consider the movie a cutoff point. But I keep saying don't I? Really don't have much to say about these last 20 seconds, so that was Missing Identity and Plankton's Army. My question of the question time last time was, what's your favorite violent moment? A lot of answers. Super Seals as I Had an Accident. Dashell has it from Krusty Krushes. Mewmaster, the fight in Mermaid Man 5. Wally Wackford, Squidward squashing the eyes in Can You Spare a Dime, and the scenes of SpongeBob operating on Squidward in Code Yellow. And Snake Man, a bunch of them. Patrick beating himself up, every violent scene in I Had an Accident. Scene of Sandy beating Mr. Krabs up in Shopping List. That one was pretty fun. Scenes of Worm vs. Squidward in The Lost Mattress. My question for you is, which episode should have been the series finale? If you think SpongeBob should have ended a long time ago, which is the episode where you think it should have stopped? Like, what would have been the best note to end on? I say that because Plankton's Army could be eligible depending on how you feel about Plankton as a character and what you wanted from him. And also, next time on March 4th, we get a pseudo-finale to the pre-movie era, The Sponge Who Could Fly. Goodbye for now.